Welcome to Shamanism, Metaphysics, and Grace. I'm Lauren Hubele, and Jyoti Wind and I will be exploring another new topic once again today. Jyoti, I'm so excited to talk with you.
Thanks, Lauren. It's so good to be here.
It's always good. Would you mind opening up the sacred space, please?
Sure. Grandmothers and grandfathers of the East, we call to you. We ask for your presence and we thank you for this day. Grandmothers and grandfathers of the South, we call to you. We ask for your presence to hold this sacred space and we thank you for this day. Grandmothers and grandfathers of the West, we ask for your presence and we thank you for this day. Grandmothers and grandfathers of the North, we call to you. We ask for your wisdom and we thank you for this day. Grandfather Sky, we ask for your protection in all things and we thank you for this day. Grandmother Earth, you whose cells we occupy, we ask for your presence. We thank you for this day. And to that wise being inside of us, that ancestors in our hearts, may that being be present. And we thank it for this day. Breathe into those wounds you carry. Breathe into the unresolved grief, the loss, the anger, the loneliness. Breathe into the still present anger, fueled by the mind and memory. Breathe into the hurts, abandonment, the slights, and unfair judgments. Breathe deeply, bringing the light into those inner places, brightening them, dispelling the shadows and ghosts of times past, and so ready to be let go of. Breathe the light into dark corners of the memories you carry, and let the light transform those cells from darkness to light. Breathe deeply into those new places and know that your past is falling away. You will now be able to transform your future into what you really want it to be.
Beautiful words for the time that we're living in, Jyoti.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So last week we talked about inner guidance and listening to our voice, our own inner voice.
Mm-hmm.
And you shared different ways to tap into that. Where will you take us today?
Well, today I've been thinking about the mirrors that life presents, that incarnating here, it's almost like perhaps we make agreements with the spirit of the earth, let's say, and we walk a path that has a lot of different aspects to it and roles that we play. But I think that one of the parts of living a human life is that we're here to grow and evolve and heal things, and that life gives us mirrors to see ourselves. And a lot of times it takes a lot to get to see ourselves, to realize that things that are happening around us are mirrors for ourselves to see ourselves more clearly, and what we do and how we behave. And sometimes it takes something really stark and in your face to have you see, oh, this is about me. This isn't about all these other people and their behaviors and whether I like it or not. This is about me. This is how I'm behaving. And maybe it's okay, and maybe it's not.
Hmm. Jyoti, I like that term mirrors, and I've heard you use that before. Would a mirror be like an interaction with someone that maybe doesn't go exactly as we would expect?
Or would want. Yes, that can be a mirror, or just being really drawn to have opinions and judgments about how somebody else is doing something.
Ooh.
That's a real flag that's saying, look over here, this is for you, you know. And a lot of times we don't. We just leave it with the judgment of that person's not behaving well, or I don't like how they're doing things, or I don't want to be around that, or, a lot of things like that. And so we kind of, in a way, we kind of miss that opportunity. Okay, so we're our glance is kind of sliding by that one. Okay, and then all of a sudden it shows itself again, maybe, a little bit later down the road, or maybe the next day. I mean, depends on where you're at with yourself and what it's time for. And sometimes we can glance aside at some of those mirrors, some of those lessons trying to get our attention to grow beyond where we've been. Sometimes we have big spaces in between, and sometimes if it's really imminent for us to deal with this issue, it comes again in our face the next day or a week later or whatever, and all of a sudden we realize, wow, let's say I'm dealing with people who are really stubborn, really stubborn, really set in their ways, and they just dig their heels in, and they won't listen to reason. They're not willing to make changes in their thinking. And you run into this person and you realize, oh my gosh, I here I am again. Here I am again. And so maybe you glance aside at that person and realize, oh, that person's just really stubborn. I mean, I can't even have a flow of conversation here. And then down the road, you run into a person who has those same traits, and it's like another opportunity for you to see yourself. Oh, no kidding. I do that. That's me. Here's a mirror for me. I have not been willing to see that part of myself in this mirror, and all of a sudden this mirror comes up, and you realize, that's me. I do that. But sometimes it has to be really stark and in your face to get your attention, because you've already glossed over maybe countless people who have just been who they are and living their lives, but they've come in your periphery so that you can see something about yourself. And as soon as you can see it, they don't have to be there, or they don't have to behave that way, or it doesn't really matter who they are or how they behave, because you've gotten the message. I need to work on that. I'm the one that's stubborn. They've just been, or whatever the issue is, they've been mirroring something to me, and I have just looked askance at it and thought it was them. And it's them, but it doesn't matter because it was for me.
Okay, I want to make sure I've got this clear because this sounds very important, Jyoti, and relevant. So, what I think I understand you saying is that we'll have opportunities, often through another person or personality, that will show up in our life again and again
Mm-hmm.
to help illuminate a part of ourself that we might need to heal or pay attention to. Does this sound about right?
Absolutely. And it's usually our shadow. It's the
Yeah,
part of ourselves we can't see. Otherwise, we would have dealt with it a long time ago. But
right.
we usually have justified that behavior in some way. And so the mirror of somebody else acting that way reminds us that, oh, I do this too. This
Yeah.
is for me to look at here. And I've been justifying this behavior. Oh, that's just part of me. That's just what I do. If I can even see it, because it's usually a part of you that's very reactive, you know,
Yes.
that it's hard to get in there and make a choice to not behave that way. And so when we see it in another person, there's a part of us that's disgusted. It's like, oh, look at how that person's behaving, you know? And that's a big flag for us to look at that and ask ourselves, do I do that? Is that something that's being shown to me over and over and over and over, and I've just ignored it? Is that something I need to work on within myself? And it's being outpictured for me because I'm not seeing it inside. I'm too close to it. It's too much of a reactive pattern. It's been a pattern that has perhaps kept us safe all this time
Mhm.
in our
Mhm.
lives, and kept a distance or whatever it was that made you feel safe, you know and so, and now all of a sudden it's like, okay, I need to work on that because I don't want to cultivate that anymore. That's not who I want to be. That's not, I mean, it is who I am. And yet it's a response, it's a reaction. So, how do I get in there and get a little room to move so that I can respond in the way I'd like to respond instead of react?
Mm.
Knee jerk reaction of,
Yeah.
oh, I don't want to hang out with you. I don't like what you're doing. And then you realize, wait a minute, I'm doing that.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so, how do I change that behavior? How do I catch that behavior? Somebody I know, I had this conversation with not too long ago, and she said, for me, I have this, like, I don't know what you'd call it, like, almost like a safe word. You know what I mean? But it's not a safe word. It's a practice. And she said, I just give myself time to take 3 deep breaths. I can get in there before I react. I remind myself, just take 3 deep breaths before I'm off and running in this behavior I don't want to cultivate anymore. So her safe word, let's say, is 3 deep breaths, if she can remember that before she reacts. And so I thought about that and I thought that's an interesting method
Mhm.
or technique.
Mhm.
And so I thought, okay, I'll employ that when those situations arise, if I can catch it quickly,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
3 deep breaths. And then that gives you a little space to not be so reactive, but to choose how you want to deal with the situation.
Yeah. Yes, so much wisdom there, Jyoti. And what you're speaking of is these habitual patterns, right, that we've all developed to protect ourselves. But I want to go back because there are two words that you use that I think will be very helpful for our listeners in recognizing when we're given these opportunities. And reactive is one of them. I think that's beautiful. And I know for me, I feel it in my body. Like a place clenches or gets hot or my heart might start racing. So it's a very and I think feeling into that somatic response because the body never lies, right?
Yes. Yes.
And then the other word that you use that I think is brilliant is justify, because oh my goodness, that's the first thing we do then, right?
Yeah.
Well, if I do that, I have good reason to do
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look
right.
what was happening.
Yeah,
Of course I couldn't do anything else.
right.
And until you change that behavior, you can't do anything else but react because one of your main buttons has just been pushed.
Sure.
you know,
Sure.
and it's like, I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to look at this. That's that person's problem. But the mirror is there to say, does this live in you as well? And
Mhm.
is it time
Mhm.
to work on this?
Well, this brings up this whole topic of, because I think we go through a period of our life that we will avoid people and circumstances that so-called push our buttons.
Hmm.
And maybe for good reasons, because we don't have the tools to manage it. But what I'm hearing you say is this very mature, spacious approach is to step back and really ask that question. I wrote it down. When do I do that? I mean, that's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting. I mean, because we can do that for years and years and think it's okay, justified. You know, I was justified. Look what that person did or said or whatever. And then all of a sudden, you know, depending on, you know, where you're at with yourself and what's up for you, um because we go through different lessons at different times, and some people might be dealing with this and other people are dealing with other things. So when it's kind of your time to look at that, um and you're paying attention, and you can't miss it, you can't miss it. It's like, finally, you know, the universe or life, you know, growth and evolution, has been showing you here and here. And this time you saw it. This time something else was awake and you caught it and said, oh, this is about me. This, whatever this person is doing is whatever this person is doing, you know, it doesn't matter. That's their thing. But how is it relative to me all of a sudden to look at and say, I do this, I do this? And maybe saying to yourself, you know, it's time to get in there, in between the trigger and the reaction, you know, and just make a choice. That's what you want to be able to do, is in between the trigger and the reaction, to just create some space so that you can have a moment to look at it and see it for what it is, and then own it and work on it yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just thinking that in those moments, giving that space and then asking yourself that question, it's really hard to not be honest. Well,
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yes, that's the point.
yes.
Yes. Yes, for me, the hardest part of it, well, there's a couple parts that are hard. Seeing it and realizing it has something to do with you, and getting in there in between you and your reaction. I remember years ago, I being in the Hakomi mindfulness based psychotherapy training, and wanting to get in between a trigger and a reaction. And it was more about, you know, when somebody says something to you like, you're doing this, they're blaming you, they're, you know, it's
Mhm.
so I was learning about iMessage points of view, and coming from a place of what I would like to see happen, or speaking for myself rather than somebody telling me who I am. That's a big trigger. So, or it was. And so, how do I get in there and just carve out a little bit of space to say to the other person, you know, I can tell you who I am. You're welcome to your feelings. I'm welcome to mine. And you know, let's have a conversation or whatever. And but being able to not just knee jerk react right back with the blame right back in that other person's face. It's like, I don't want to live like that. You know, I want to change that pattern in myself. So how do I have that space to choose how I want to respond. And I remember one of the first times I was able to do it, it was with one of my kids. And I
Mhm.
mean, and that whole response, or reaction was automatic. And anything that's automatic, you need to look at. Um, so I had that moment in time that I had been practicing giving myself, and I was able to say, well, you're welcome to your feelings. From my point of view, that's not what I was doing, or that's not what was happening for me. But you're welcome to your feelings about what was going on. And I was like celebrating inside
Totally.
because I was finally able to get in there without that knee jerk response,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
which would have led nowhere, and would have led to an argument, and would have led to a frustration and a hassle and all those other things that I was tired of.
Mhm.
I think if you get frustrated and tired of things enough, you have the impetus to change it.
Yeah. Jyoti, this is such a beautiful wisdom. And although what you're asking is challenging,
Oh, yeah.
it's simple. It's
Yes.
not complicated.
No. I think that it's personal work. It's a part of personal work, and some things are more challenging or more frustrating than others. But having a willingness, uh, having a willingness to see yourself, and then being presented with all the situations that can show you yourself, and you're going, oh, that has nothing to do with me, that has nothing to do with me. And then it's like, okay, here it is again, in such a way that you almost can't not see it,
Yeah.
and being grateful that it came up in such a way that you could see it in no uncertain terms, and know that this is about you, not anybody else. And being grateful for that opportunity to see it, and then do whatever it is you need to do to change that pattern.
Yeah. You know what's coming up for me here that I think would be good to clarify um, is, there's a lot of teachings that teach us, don't take it, like with four agreements, don't take anything personally, right? And that's absolutely spot on. However, within that, there is a lesson for you if it keeps showing up. That's what I think
Yes.
I'm hearing.
Yes, yes. If it keeps showing up, it probably has your name on it. It's probably it's probably a mirror for you, and especially if it rankles you, especially if it disturbs you, and it's
Yeah.
like, oh, I just don't like that. It's like, oh, well, maybe I don't like a part of my behavior, how I react to things, and that even though I've justified it all this time, maybe it's time to really look at it and see, this doesn't really work for me
Yeah.
in life experiences and relationships. This doesn't really work for me, and I don't want to behave this way anymore.
Yeah. Beautiful.
And
Jyoti,
it's a work in progress,
it
Lauren.
is.
I mean, it's little bite-sized pieces.
Oh,
You get a
yeah.
glimpse of something, and maybe you think about it or work on it, and then you get a glimpse of a bigger picture or a bigger pattern, and you work on it. But it's your desire to heal, and your desire to push past the old patterns of behavior that is the real point.
Yeah. It is the point. It is the point. And Jyoti, as I'm listening, this is, there's been an overarching theme in most of my interviews with you is this idea of taking your power back and standing in your sovereignty. And this is that too, because every time we can catch ourselves from a habitual reaction, we're actually gaining power
Oh,
over how we behave.
absolutely. And in a way, it's taking your power back from that very thing, that very reaction, and giving it back to yourself, so that you know you have choice in how you want to respond.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, thanks, Jyoti.
You're welcome, Lauren.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a I'm thinking of the words, meditation for us to
Yes,
close out
yes,
today? Yeah,
yeah,
thanks,
a little
Jyoti.
visualization.
Okay.
Okay, okay. So just close your eyes and take a nice deep breath and let go of the cares of the day. And just take a step in your mind's eye. Just see yourself taking a step forward and stepping into a column of light. This light that's coming down from the heavens, let's say, you can look at it that way, that light, and it just fills you. It's like a column of light that has grace in it, mercy, compassion, um, a willingness to really love yourself and be grateful for the lessons that find you in this life. And that's one aspect of it. And in another aspect, that light is like your life. It's like from source, whatever you see the source of your whole existence as. And it just fills your cells. You just stand in that column of light, and all your cells are getting filled with light. Your thoughts, your feelings, your body, your consciousness, just being filled with that light. You can call it grace. You can call it divine love. You can call it God's mercy. You can call it the divine feminine. Whatever belief system works for you in the moment. Just feel your shoulders relax and just feel your body just brighter, your awareness just brighter inside as you allow this light to just fill you all the way down into the soles of your feet and even going down into the center of the earth to also feed the great Mother Earth that we live on. And then very slowly coming back to yourself, your body, your own self-awareness, and taking that step back into who you are in the moment, into your present room or circumstance, and just opening your eyes when you're ready.
Thank you, Jyoti.
Oh, I could feel my own shoulders relaxing.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to add before we close out?
Well, I think that's it, Lauren.
It was complete.
Mm-hmm.
And if folks would like more information on your work, Jyoti, where would you like to send them?
JyotiWindAstrology.com is my website, and I have free classes on my free YouTube channel, which is my name, Jyoti Wind, on YouTube.
Great. Thanks.
Yep.